Okay, hello. This is going to be a video, hopefully less than 10 minutes. Don't count on it. Giving you direction, like I would in front of the classroom, for your IB lab number one. All right, IB lab number one is called Qualitative Analysis of Carbohydrates. It was performed in this classroom actually 3 times by me last week, and then I saved the best results for you all. All right, so I'm going to give you the pre-lab to the lab and then set you off to do the lab simulation, and not really, not like the online simulation. Simulation this time is going to be looking at pictures for your data. All right, so what you see in front of you is what it is been shared with you. A folder, okay, with 7 other folders of pictures in it. All right, and then there are 3 documents below. All right, one that has the procedure on it, which we'll take a look at in a second. Another that has pre and post lab questions that you're going to need to consider. And then another is the directions for the write-up. Before you do that, I wanted to remind you all that remember this is an IB lab, so you're going to be writing a report. This report really should not be totally any longer than 5 pages. Any longer than 5 pages. And done in advance, which we'll get to, you should have plenty of time to do it. All right, so what you're looking at here, again, remember, 21 of you have last year IB experience in writing reports with your IA and other things, or portions of report, whether it was your introduction, conclude and evaluate, data collection and processing. The rest of us who need to remember it are going to come back to your classroom page, down to the lab section, and find the IB lab report format, which is right there. All right, for this lab, boys and girls, you're going to be doing sections 1, 3, and 4. Okay, but portions. So listen so that you know what section to do. All right, complete for this lab only introduction section 1.3, gaining experience in writing cited background information. Okay, only 1.3. Leave the other 3 points in number 1 out. So introduction, bam, background information, you go with that. Methodology, we're leaving it totally out. I have written the lab for you, so you don't have a methodology to write, and please don't retype it. You are going to be doing data collection and processing. In fact, boys and girls, for every lab, you're always going to be doing data collection and processing. All right? You're going to be doing a lab that is a qualitative lab, no numbers. So your data table is going to include only qualitative data in it. All right, when we get to the lab. For your conclusions, there are 2 sections to the conclusion, and so you're going to be doing only section 4.1, the conclusions, not section 4.2. 4.1 conclusions only. All right, we're going to have to ease ourselves into evaluating a lab that somebody else does for you, i.e. a simulation or a database, because that's what the majority of us are going to be doing for their IA, probably. And that's next week. All right, so let's go back. So now you know what has to be done. There are 2 templates online that you can look at for, and they're not for this lab, for how to do things. Okay, so let's bring up just one really quickly, and there you can see, all right, 1.1, 1.2, knowing how to doing, and here you see background information. All right, so this is not for a lab you're doing. This is just so that you can see how to set it up, how to properly cite, because you will be doing research that is going to need to be cited, all right, in this lab. All right, so you can use either one. There are 2 on here. They both look remarkably similar because following a format should be the least of your issues. Don't make it an issue. I.e., don't do what you want. For those of you needing more direction for writing a lab report, remember, you have your lab report writing guide, which will go into in detail, especially the data collection and processing information about how to write it, how to make a data table, what is raw data, qualitative versus quantitative, all right, for any particular lab that you want to do. So you go to the section that you need, and you pick out of that section. You look at the templates, again, but the templates are not this lab. So we do this lab last year. I did it in 19, though. All right, so that's what you have. Now, let's take a quick look at the lab. All right, so the lab is shared with you. And here's what I want you to do with the lab. I want you to go through it. You read my little introduction. You're going to be performing 6 tests, i.e. last week I performed the 6 tests. you're going to be looking at the results of the 6 tests. But here's how you should be doing it. Number 1, there is a folder with all of the materials. All right, so let's get on this. I'm going to get out of that now. With all of the materials in it. You need to be aware of the materials that were used. Bring it up. All right, there is one labeled document in here. I think that's this one here, labeled with the materials there. So now these are all the materials that were used by the lab. All right, so far too many materials for you to come in here and put your hands on. All right, and even the quantity there was just a sample, was a lot more than just that. So the materials, take a look at your materials list, take a look at your reagents, take a look at the carbohydrates that are used, particularly the color of them beforehand. All right, so you go along just like you were doing the lab. All right, there are materials, so forth. So I didn't change this at all from anything that was done in the classroom. I didn't make it more of a simulation. I wanted to simulate what I did in here. So everything that we did in here. I prepared solutions. I had to prepare all the reagents. Well, most of them, not all of them. Okay, some of the reagents in advance. The blue reagents, you'll see I did not have to prepare. Okay, Anthrone's, Selewanov, and Bial's reagent I had to prepare. So using this, so this is what I did. So notice in class, you'd have been directed to come up and pour them from the bottles you saw them in because I prepared them in advance. Okay, but it's good to see and to read how it was done. All right, so you move to the first test. So when you look at the first test, all right, when you look at the first test online, here's what you do. You look at the procedure, bam, bam, bam. You go back to the lab. You bring up Anthrone. I've got a set of before pictures and after pictures. You need to, here's your first hint. Hint number 1, you need to collect data. The collected data is right in front of you. It's qualitative from before and after. So I'm going to bring up a before picture so you can orient yourself. Because here's the information I didn't give you. You have 7 labeled test tubes. The W1 is a control for water. The other 6 hold carbohydrates in it. I'm not telling you what the carbohydrates are. Through your learning and researching on the lab, you're going to learn which carbohydrates tested positive for each one of the sugar or for the reagents and which ones didn't or wouldn't react with it. Water is your system of control here. So you'll notice in the after picture, right, water stays the same because you're looking at it to compare. Right? The reason why I took a look at this one here without the other ones in this video is because they all tested positive. Because they're all carbohydrates. There, I gave you that one. So that's not difficult, but you know the 6 carbohydrates that are being used because you can go back and check that out from the procedure: glucose, sucrose, ribose, maltose, fructose, and starch. A polysaccharide, disaccharide represented, and a pentose and a bunch of hexose sugars, all we discussed in class. So you're going to say to yourself, all right, well, how can I figure that out? Because for this lab and for this lab only, I'm kind of directing you at what kind of research you should be doing. So you have a set of questions here, all right? That in this lab, they're not to be done. You're not turning in these questions. This is guidance for the research to be done, all right? You need to know what a biochemical test is and the proper definition for the word reagent because you have 6 reagents to use, all right? So you'll notice here, every question that you see, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10, when we talk about the reagents, it is about that. What is the Anthrone reagent test for? How will you know if something is tested positive? Well, you saw that. And is there a range of positivity? So can something be, for instance, first yellow, then blue, then green? All of them are positive, but there are various forms of reaction within. So if something is in a qualitative test positive or negative, that's, when you get a test for a disease, have you tested COVID positive or negative? The same kind of idea. In addition, you need to be able to figure out, go back to the Anthrone, what reaction took place here? Why did it turn green? What was the reaction that turned these carbohydrates, okay, and the reagent in here, because that's what was in there, depending on what you read in the procedure. Why did it go from this color to this color? What's the science behind it? That's the research in the pre and post lab questions for each one. What reaction caused it to change? So learning about that all the way through. So normally I give you none of this because you need to make sure. So you can maybe put some of this, cited of course, into your introduction, and definitely keep all of this information for your conclusions that you're going to be making. But this is not the conclusions. Again, these questions are not going to be graded by me and do not have to be formally prepared. All right. All right. So you go back, we bring the test back. So you have 6 tests to go through and to record the data. So what is due? Normally for every IB lab you do, I give you a set of Cottingham lab report notes. I mean, what is due for that lab? Okay? So notice, as per format, and you are going to be doing, you are going to be completing, I'll do this when you're gone, the background. All right, section. I'll complete this and it'll be up. All right, no methodology, not included. Sections 1, 3, and 4, and direction here. All right, so you're going to need to include 2 data tables, and are prepared properly by looking at either one of the templates or the lab reporting report guide. All right, a data collection, which is simply the recorded data that you see in the lab. You need to record the data, just like you would if you're looking at the number and putting a number 3.75 milliliters down. What is the recorded data for each one of the tests, for each one of the test tubes? The test, water, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, record the data. All right, and then you take some thinking, because I'm looking for you to be able to develop another data table to indicate whether the carbohydrates or water tested positive or negative when combined with the reagent. Now you can read that off the table, but you're also going to need to have an idea for your conclusions which carbohydrate it is you're talking about that in fact tested positive. Because if you click around to other tests, you're going to find out that not all of them test positive because they're not supposed to. They don't all react with the reagent. Why? Well, that's for you to figure out. So basically, this processing table needs to be, takes a little thought. Do you just put in there positive or negative? Okay, you could do that, but you still have to deal with what are the carbohydrates in your conclusions. Let's go to there. All right? Conclusions. So you're going to need to make a conclusion short paragraph for each of the tests that you do, each of them. So that's going to be 6 short paragraphs for your conclusion. This is long. So use your process data. We always use process data, whether it's numbers or graphs. Use your process data to conclude if the results of the test, the after picture, is consistent with the information you researched about the type of test. What sugars should test positive? What does the positive test look like? Make a conclusion and justify it with the process data. Provide scientific reasoning, which means what happened inside that test tube, what happened to make it change color. You can click through these at your leisure now to do so. All right. Sorry, it's the wrong one. All right. So 3 things. That's about at the end of this. And I literally, I have really almost nothing else that I can tell you without doing this lab for you. And in fact, I've already given you too much information. When it comes to IB and any IB lab, you've got to do the lab. And so when we do the next one, which is going to be on enzymes, because that's a required lab for IB, and could be asked on the test, or I should say when I do it for you, you're going to need to take on all of that responsibility of introduction, of data collection and processing, except then it's going to be numbers, and conclude. And we'll try to get evaluate in there as well. All right, so all of this is going to be on. One more thing to take a quick look at is a little smart board that I prepared with reminders. All right, and these are These are important reminders for this test. Everything is to be put on a Google Doc, and then you will attach that Google Doc in the end to this assignment, which is going to be uploaded to you. Number 2, beware, boys and girls, of plagiarism. IB lab reports are to be done on your own. On your own. Do not do it with each other. Do not share work with each other. Your work, your mistakes if you made them. It's going to be painfully easy online when I start putting one lab report up against next to each other to see who did not. All right? Plagiarism. And most important, the due date. All right? Most of the time, boys and girls, an IB lab gets about 8 days to have it done. A week. All right? This lab, get out of the camera here, is being put up on Friday, October 16th. And you have 2 weeks to do it. You will never be given 2 weeks again. I give you plenty of time to do everything. All right? So you're going to need to adjust your schedules and get it done. Don't leave it to the end. Don't leave studying to the end. If you do, it's on you. And you know, and you out there in IB land know who I'm talking to. Okay? 2 weeks at the end of October 30th. Bam, done. All right? And remember, if you come in for T period for this, you're going to hear a lot of, I can't help you. So I'm not doing this for you. I'm not going to be telling you the answers. You need to do the work. This is IB after all. All right? This is what I told you in September about, did you make the right choice? All right? All right, so then this ends this. Hopefully I came in under 15 minutes. We'll see. Thank you.